United Nations has cancelled the head of the Gambian army, Ousman Badjie's visit to the country's peacekeepers serving with the UN mission in the Darfur region of Sudan. The move is thought to put pressure on the military to not side with President Jammeh and allow Adama Barrow to be sworn in as the head of state. Jammeh is believed to retain the support of key members of the security forces, including Badjie. Badjie arrived at a meeting with West African leaders on Tuesday wearing a badge with the photo of President Jammeh. This week, Gambian soldiers also occupied the Electoral Commission's headquarters in an apparent show of loyalty to the outgoing leader. President Jammeh has refused to hand over power to President-elect Adama Barrow. For an update on this, we're joined by Liling Tan live in New York. Liling, what reasons is the United Nations giving for cancelling Badjie's visit?
Well, the United Nations, we're still waiting for an official comment from the UN headquarters and the UN Department of Peacekeeping on why this visit by the general to peacekeepers serving in Sudan was cancelled. Now, what we do know is, as you mentioned, BBC World Service's editor James Copnell had said that this, in effect, puts pressure on the military not to support President Jammeh, and also this, of course, in turn puts indirect pressure on President Jammeh to step down. Now, we are still pursuing the UN for an official explanation for this cancellation, and we'll have more for you soon.
Now, the UN has given Jammeh until the 18th of January to step down or face sanctions. What can we expect should he fail to comply?
Well, the UN has several options to take before it actually pushes or enacts those sanctions. That's, of course, the most aggressive response from the UN. Now, the UN moving forward could still exert, and it will likely continue to exert and increase pressure on President Jammeh and his government by either going through its special envoy directly, special envoy of Western Sahara and Sahel region, to work closely, directly with the government to try and persuade the president to step down and concede to the will of the Gambian people. The other alternative, the other option on the mediation front is to work more closely with regional leaders in West Africa, many of whom were in Gambia on a visit to try and persuade the president to step down. The UN can work more closely with them on mediation efforts with President Jammeh. Now, of course, the third option is, as you mentioned, sanctions. The UN can continue to threaten sanctions, and it will likely do that. However, imposing sanctions is a tricky move because not all members of the Security Council are keen to enact sanctions over a diplomatic course. So what we'll likely see is the threat of sanctions while the UN and UN agencies pursue a diplomatic route.
All right, Liling Tan in New York, thank you. The United Nations